Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're really glad you're here with us today. My name is Anelity Milne, and I serve as the director of the Women's and Young Women's Recovery Program at Life-Changing Services called Daughters of Light and Warrior Women of Light. And today I'm joined by my colleagues, my beautiful friends, Markel Brown. She's the director of Betrayal Trauma Program, Worth, and Rhonda Stewart, and she's our coach for the YSA Recovery Sisters of Promise group, sister missionaries and return missionaries, even future missionaries. And Karen Broadhead, she's the director of our mothers group called Mothers Who Know. Together, we're the women's services at Life-Changing Services. We provide coaching and therapeutic recovery programs for women who might be navigating mental health challenges, who might be struggling with addiction, or might have some kind of healing, complexity, mental health challenge, problem. We're going to begin today by doing a little disclaimer. We are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and our work is informed by our faith, but we are not represented. We do not represent the church in any official capacity. So our approach at Life-Changing Services is both clinical and spiritual, hopefully. We believe, as is taught in the New Testament, that we are engaged in a kind of spiritual warfare, not against people, but against unseen influences and power, dominions, principalities, that affect our thoughts and our behaviors and our sense of identity. And the talk we're going to be reviewing today is really a lot about that sense of identity and how the Savior interacts with those beliefs and faith that we have in Him while helping us with our infirmities. So at this time, we kind of want to just give you a little bit of a background about what we do. Hopefully, our work is deeply committed to evidence-based practices in our fields, with an understanding of the brain and mental health. We understand that spirituality and our brains cannot be separated. We believe that we are a human being with a body, with a heart and a spirit, that all have to be treated and all have to be considered. We recognize that many struggles that people have, whether it's trauma, addiction, emotional overwhelm, they're often connected to how the brain responds to our lived experiences, our sensitivities, and circumstances outside of our control. When the brain is hijacked, it can make it incredibly difficult to act within our values and actually behave the way we want to behave and show up in the world the way we want to show up. So our purpose here today in this space is to talk openly about these challenges. And we usually like to do a reaction to a conference talk or some words from the prophets. Today, we're actually going to be reacting to Elder Bednar and Sister Bednar's women's conference talk given in 2026, Arise and Shine Forth as Disciples of Christ. So let's go ahead and get started. Markel, I always have you start us off.
Okay. Wow. There were some powerful messages in here. And Sister Bednar talked about the importance of the family. And she brought in a reminder that social restraints are dissolving, and only those who believe in the family are going to be able to maintain their families. And that was really powerful to me. And I think we could have quite a discussion with that. And I want to share a story as well. Because she talked about ministering sisters and shared an example of how a sister ministered to her before Ministering Brothers and Sisters was even created. And I have always been really, really grateful for, back in the day when it was visiting, teaching, and home teaching, and now ministering. We've never lived by family, and this has really given me a great way to get to know the sisters in the ward more and their families, and really feel this sense of connection and this sense of belonging. And when we moved to Ohio, I had 3 small children, and it was really far away from any family. A 2-day drive to my parents in Missouri, and then, of course, 3 long days all the way across the country to Utah. And I got really, really, really sick. I lost 16 pounds in 2 days. I really thought I was going to die. My lungs felt like they were on fire. And my husband could not take any work off. And these women, a couple of women, came into my home. They took care of my kids. They did the laundry. They prepared meals. They took care of me because I couldn't hardly move. And I was still nursing one of our youngest. And my husband needed sleep. Also wasn't super great help, but he needed some sleep. And so one of the women stayed the night as well. And then, when the baby would wake up, I would go nurse her, and then I would go back to bed. And so this was like 3 really long days. And they played with my kids. My kids had lots of memories, and I was so grateful. And they helped until my mom was able to come and take care of me for another week. And, I'm very blessed. I feel blessed. I'm so grateful that we have wards where it's like our family, and they can come in and help and, reach out where they need. And that was a blessing to our family. And, it really brought that connection with these women. It brought us even closer in that short time that we had lived there. So
I think it's really interesting, Markel, because frankly, who wants to be the one who's in bed being ministered to?
Not me. That totally is not my personality.
No, I totally hear you. I don't want to be that person. And when Sister Bednar said, she was very unwell and she just had a series of, things happening to her after she had this baby, it made me just think about the days when I was in that space of not wanting to be that person. And I think it, really, truly affects your mental health. Can you imagine? I mean, come on, really, can you imagine living in a world today without the church?
No. I think many people feel very alone because they can't just reach out, and they don't have family around either. And there are oftentimes people are like, I don't even know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Karen.
Yeah, I think people feel alone even in a ward family.
Yeah.
Part of our not feeling alone, something I'm personally experiencing in a new community that I live in, is just having the personal courage to, the way Elder Bednar puts it, right, to arise through the strength of Jesus Christ and go do something like ministering, right? That's really hard for me to do in a situation where I feel like I'm in a subdued season of healing, right? And so I want to, so anyway, I kind of feel like ministering's been difficult, and not having like an assignment, like here's your assignment and this is what it looks like, has been really challenging. So I can see the loneliness in my community. It's a super small community, like less than 600 people live here.
Wow.
And
do you have family that lives around you, Karen?
I do have some young single adult kids that live within an hour of where I live.
Yeah, but an hour, that's not pretty close. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's just been such a new experience for me in my life, right? Like, you know how you meet yourself in a new place and you're like, I've never met myself here before.
Wow.
Does that make sense? I haven't met myself here before. And so it's, you know, I'm grateful for the things that I've learned, the things that I know, and what I know about Jesus Christ. But these talks help me to hear this really loud message that we don't arise in our own strength, but we arise in the strength of Jesus Christ. And that it's his light that we are shining. And so I notice when I lean into that, I have much more courage to just arise and shine light, even though I feel like, can I just shh? Can I just shh? I don't know what to say. Can I just shh? Can I just be quiet and just, yeah, notice? So that's what I would say about ministering and Sisters Bednar's comments and how it relates to me personally, but how incredible it's been to go through these talks and listen to that invitation that this is the arising that they're referring to, that we, you know, because boy, does he ever honor extremities in this talk, right? In the videos that he refers to,
Wow.
and the stories from the people in Michigan, that their testimonies that he quotes, and then how he references that by telling everybody, do not applaud, right? Arising is a sacred thing. And it happens in
Yeah.
the hardest parts of our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like sometimes it's very hard to be vulnerable with other people around us when we're feeling unstable or insecure or overwhelmed. And when we do, I feel like I'm going to go back to this whole ministering thing. Sometimes we get advice we're actually not looking for. And it's hard for us as members of the church to know how to hold space for people's pain and not try to fix their pain. I have a client who recently told me that, she's had some challenges going on in her marriage. And she opened up to a sister in the ward and just said, yeah, things, we've been really struggling, da da da. She's kind of going into things. And, us women, we're going to see things from our point of view. We don't know exactly how to fix how things are going. And sometimes it can feel super frantic. And so, you can show up frantically.
Yeah.
And this woman proceeded to tell her, well, I got divorced and, this is why I did it. And, you should really consider and just giving her all this advice. And the truth was, my client, she didn't really want advice. She wanted an ear to hear her pain, to hold her pain for a minute. But I'm telling you, it's hard for us to just hold pain, for people without trying to fix it or tell them what to do. Or, one of the things I would have to say is when you have a sister in your community, in your ward, and I know that this is just about ministering, that the talk a lot was about the proclamation to the world, the family, how important the family and the preservation of the family was. But I do believe that our ward family is our family too. So if I gave advice to other sisters, other Relief Society ladies, I would say, if someone is bearing their heart to you, hold it, reflect back to them, and then ask them, do you feel like you have enough support? Do you feel like you're finding the answers you need? Do you feel like you know where to go? So I would say hold, reflect, and ask. That would be my big message to other Relief Society ladies. If you become a minister like that, sometimes the messages you give them are not in your words.
So good.
You know, it's interesting because I have some very big crazy things going on in my children's lives right now, and a couple of days ago was like, oof, I don't even know, how do I do this? And I had a son and a daughter-in-law who were having to go to court for this very stupid, overwhelming thing, and it was quite a fiasco. They were not told that they needed to get a representation. It was very confusing. And my son, who's actually very intelligent and it was very prepared for this, came out feeling that he hadn't prepared well. And the first thing he wanted to say, he said, was, I need my mom. And his wife is standing right there, and she tried not to take any offense. I need my mom. And his wife said to him, okay, let's call your mom. What do you need your mom to do? And he says, I just need her to hold me. That's all. I just need her to hold me. I need her to feel, I need to feel her presence with me. And they called me, and of course, I am a therapist, so I do know how to do that. I can't fix their pain. But I do think that when we're reaching out to other people, we're just looking for someone to hold us. We're just looking for that mother nurturing instinct that I do believe, if we preserve the family, if we tell women it's beautiful and amazing to be mothers, just be mothers, just nurture. Just be mothers. It's okay to take on the role as a mother. If you're willing to embrace that as a calling, it's not a weakness. It's a strength.
Yeah.
We don't have to be managers. We don't have to be, saviors. We just have to be mothers who know how to nurture and to hold and put that woman, put that other woman, put that child, put whatever to our breast. That is symbol. That is a symbology, metaphor for I can hold you close to my heart, and I can hold your pain close to my heart. I can co-regulate with you.
Can I share something as well? That is developing that character of Christ, where we can hold that space and hold another. And Elder Christofferson, actually President Christofferson now, in his April 2026 conference talk, actually quoted Elder Bednar about, those Christ-like characteristics. And one of those
that women can be so good at, right?
Yeah. He said, character is revealed in the power to discern the suffering of other people when we ourselves are suffering, in the ability to detect the hunger of others when we're hungry, and in the power to reach out and extend compassion for the spiritual agony of others when we are in the midst of our own spiritual distress. And he said, that's that turning outward instead of inward. And that is exemplifying Christ. And I also like to say, oftentimes, as Elder Bednar said in this women's conference talk, that before we can arise and shine and help those around us, we have to do our work first. We have to really fill our cup and, do the things that we need to so that we can reach out. And so one thing that I love is that a lot of times, even when we are just in the deepest pain, there are little moments that we still are reaching out. And a lot of times it's like this ministering too. Somebody comes, maybe you might be going to minister them and then they minister to you. And so it's a two-way path here where you are both edified and loved. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that and also know that it's important for us to care for ourselves too.
Yeah. Rhonda, did you have something that you were holding on into your heart about all of this? Because I can see you taking notes and you're so good at that.
I was just thinking about missionaries and about arising and sharing your light. Like sometimes it can be really difficult when you don't feel like you belong in a ward because other sisters aren't coming to you and reaching out to you. But we can have 20 seconds of insane courage through and arise through our Savior Jesus Christ and observe, then serve the other sisters. One thing that I've noticed is I have done that because can be really painful for me to attend church some Sundays because I am real sensitive and have a lot of things going on in my family, and I'll find myself just so close to tears and crying. But I have found that as I've had shown 20 seconds of insane courage and just sat next to somebody who was lonely or just listened to what the Spirit was telling me who needed me that day in my Relief Society meeting or in my sacrament meeting, there are many women just like me, just afraid, just full of fear and so full of heaviness of what's going on in their own personal lives that they don't reach out and share. But that's one thing that I can do, even though I am in the midst of my own personal pain. I can be there and sit next to somebody and share my story or just give them a hug, whatever the Spirit prompts, that I can be there for them. That's one way I can do that. And as I was thinking of the word arise, I thought of the line in Come, Come, Ye Saints, where it says, gird up your loins, fresh courage take. Our God will never us forsake.
Mm.
And if we can carry that in our hearts, it will help us arise, that we can gird up our loins and fresh courage take. And we can practice 20 seconds of insane courage and do what the Spirit puts upon our heart to do.
Oh, read it again. I just love it so much. I just love it so much. Read it again.
Gird up your loins, fresh courage take. Our God will never us forsake.
Gird
Now,
up your loins.
now sing it. Now sing it.
Now sing it. Now sing it, Rhonda.
Right.
Because can't you hear it in your voice? I mean, I can hear it in my head. Someone singing.
I was actually having a hard time not singing it as I'm saying it.
It's so beautiful. And it just is, in my mind, it's that gritty feeling of, yes, I'm not the only person who is just, in this space. I do know that people who suffer from depression, the first thing they want to do is, turtle up, put their bell on, turtle up. And, in this space, the only thing they have to converse with is Satan in their own brain.
It's a hard place to be. Elder Bednar gave a talk about the African topis and about how their predators prey on them. And the one way that they can get to them is isolation, is in turtling up in our hard things instead of letting our light shine and being seen, because where there's light and darkness can't share that same space. I love that part. Elder Bednar was talking about that, because if we can share the light even on our hard and bear testimony where God shows up in our story, right where we are, right in our pain, it dispels the darkness. They cannot exist in the same space.
It's just interesting to me because in our programs, Warrior Women of Light, Daughters of Light, Sisters of Promise, all of the programs that we do, we spend a lot of time talking about identity. And I have my women do identity statements. One of the things that I also do is internal family systems. I'm sure many people are familiar with it. And in that evidence-based practice, um, they talk about self-leadership, and the best way for me to get people into that self-leadership space is to create an identity statement. And the two questions I ask them to see if they can answer is, what do you know about yourself is true? And then I just write as they talk about what they know that is true about themselves. I usually have them do like some personality tests or something before we do this, so that they have words or an idea, after they've gone through questions. It's like, I prefer this over this, trying to describe themselves. And then the second question I ask them is, what does God want you to know about yourself? And it's interesting what happens to their shift when I ask them, we're going to write an identity statement. I'm going to ask you two questions. This is the first one. Let's go. And then I'll give it, they'll just go, rattle off. And I'm writing while they're rattling off. And then, what does God want you to know about yourself? And they pause and stop, and lots of emotions start to just rise inside of them, as if they hadn't thought that God is in this space with them also. And, oh yeah, that's right. He has an opinion about me. He wants me to know things about me, and then I will hear things that are just incredible come out of their mouths, and I'll write. And we create these identity statements that are quite intensive, extensive. And it's one of the practices we have them do is read those identity states often. And the reason why we do that is because, it helps us to not turtle up when we're in those dark spaces. It reminds us who we actually really are.
Yeah. And you know what, Anelody? Elder Bednar, he talks about the man with palsy and how he says, "Son, be of good cheer. Son, thy sins forgive thee. I forgive thee." And he, really indicates in those scriptures, he repeats son, son, son. And that is establishing a closer relationship between man and the Lord. And it also identifies his identity. And he said in those moments, identity was strengthened, their dignity was strengthened, and fears were erased. The Lord acknowledged, and his faith increased. And it was such a good reminder of, okay, wow, our identity is so powerful. If you don't have any identity statements, I would invite you all to create one. It can be as short as, I'm a daughter of God. I'm amazing. I'm kind. I'm loving. I listen to the Lord. I'm important. Anytime you're saying I am is referencing to who you are. And it can shift our psychology.
And I'd like to
so
also
fast.
include, I am the kind of person who, so that I can
Yes.
also direct my behavior toward myself and others. Yeah.
I love that. It's one of the fastest way to shift our psychology and get back into that
It is.
prefrontal cortex and align ourselves with God. And so if you're really struggling, if you've got those identity statements memorized, you can just go right into that. And it will really help to boost your mood and your dopamine levels and help you to be able to think clearer and step back in to your power and the truth of who you are.
One thing I like to tell the girls and the women that I work with when we're doing identity statements is something that Sister Sherry do and Sister Nelson talk about, that this is who we are and who we've always been. When we can see ourselves and our true identity as God created us to be, we can know this is who we've always been. This is who we were primordially and who we here are here on this earth.
And, I want to add to that, something that I really appreciate about the restored gospel is it teaches us that we are eternally existent. And that means that we existed primordially, like you said.
not very many Christians would other Christians would agree that that is true. They a lot of them believe that we were only created out of nothing, and the first of our creation was when we were created in the womb. And to me, it just doesn't ring true, and it also doesn't bring me comfort, because what you just said was who I am and who I always have been. That actually really rings so much more true to me.
Mm.
And when I believe that, that's when I can really say, okay, actually, I do have a true identity.
And sometimes it can be hard to feel that way about ourselves when we're in like being bombarded with thoughts. But one eternal warrior mentor years ago suggested to me is that I pray to see myself the way God sees me every day. And as I've done that, God showed me who I was.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm thinking about having a language of identity that we use more commonly in our families, right? More commonly about divine identity and identifying things about us that aren't just, you're smart. Look, you can do that by yourself. You know, that kind of stuff. It's like, how do I speak differently to, create my own personal identity statements that sound like they're part of my language right in front of my family so that they would feel more comfortable. Also identifying who they are, right? It's just that's been kind of a neat thing to notice as we're talking about identity, is that as we practice becoming more comfortable by creating identity statements and holding our divine identity in a more honored, honest place, like, even though I'm a hot mess, this is who I am, right? This is, and then being able to portray that, I think that can be such a strength to our family. And something really powerful that I often do when I meet with women who they're a mother who's bringing someone to our programs because they need support beyond what they can offer at home that they've tried and tried and tried. And so by the time they get here, often they're feeling like, I'm so tired. Like, I'm super tired of the trying, and I'm super tired of all of the hard that we're dealing with. And one of the things I'll identify to them is that, one of the first things that one of my children learned in a program, and that I will share with you, your child is going to learn, is that they're not alone. Other noble, great people that are just like them struggle with the same thing. That's a wonderful thing to know, because it's been, well, we're keeping this just in our family, right? And maybe with the bishop. We're working with the bishop, right? But that's about it. And then I say, but the second wonderful thing that your child is going to get really quickly here, because, and I explain what you explained at the beginning of our podcast, Melody, about how we have, that spiritual warfare is a thing, right? And that we only have one enemy. And I said, and I explain that to them. And then I say, when you understand, I'm awesome. The enemy sees me as a formidable target. He's actually afraid of my identity, who I'm becoming. And I'm a target here. And so I only have one enemy, and it's never me. And so then I ask the parent to share, I don't say it like this, but to share identity statements about their child. And I will say, can you please just name everything you can think of, as I write it down? Name everything you can think of about your child that would make them a threat to the enemy's work, right? To Satan's work. What would make them a threat? And then after they do that, they often are emotional. because they're really being descriptive of their child, of who they know that they are. But nobody can see somebody's identity as good as a mom, right? Like their real identity. And so I just think that that's, and then I say that's the number one weapon of light you have in the discouragement you're feeling, is to remember who your child is and speak it often to them and write about it to yourself, right?
Mhm.
You hold space for their divine identity. This is just their mortal experience.
You know, Karen, I love that so much. And I believe that as moms or even dads or even family members will write down what they see, the greatness they see in their child, it's going to help them to remember, okay, wow, they really are great. They're just caught in this trap or this darkness, or they're going through a really hard time. And I think for us as parents, if we can review that frequently, that's going to help us to keep our focus on, instead of all the labels that can be given and that we do hear parents say. And I, years over the years, have said things too that I'm like, I cannot say that, right? Because that's not true. It helps us to anchor into and keep our focus on, okay, they are a son or a daughter of God. They are doing great things. They have all these gifts and talents. And I need to remember this. How can I pray to seek understanding, to see them as God sees them, and to also help them see who they are as they are becoming? And they have great things to do. The other thing, Karen, that you said, these unseen powers, these forces. I was pondering about this the other day, and I think that is one of the things that is unique about our services at Life Changing Services, is a lot of times people are in deep pain and nobody can see that pain. I remember when I was going through my experience, and I say this gently, there were some people that were, really facing and struggling with cancer. And they had all these treatments, and people, they met with them and they were there for them, and they just, you know, every day, lots and lots of help. And here, Anelity, you also spoke at the beginning of how we can hold the space for those that are bearing their heart to you, of how hard this is. The things that we are helping people are because they're dealing with these unseen forces, whether it's the torment or temptation or turmoil, the attacks of the adversary, or it's these thoughts and these emotions because we've been impacted by the choices of others that totally flood us. And it's all consuming and overwhelming at times, of course, because the adversary just wants to push that button, when we're most vulnerable and
Amen.
pain. And so when those things are unseen, people will often judge, or they'll think we're making it up, or we should just be able to get over it just like that, right? And yet it's a deeper pain, a more core hit to who we are with our beliefs and values, because we are facing this spiritual warfare. The enemy is trying to not only destroy us, also our family. And so although we don't have lab tests, we don't have medicines per se, we really, really need a lot of support and love and nurturing and just being heard and seen. And that will help us to be able to feel like we belong and that we're loved. Because this is really hard work. I actually, to differ, that it's probably harder than an illness or, even a life-threatening illness, because we're not choosing to feel the way we are. And a lot of times when there's trauma, these physiological responses in our body, it really hijacks us being able to just stop. And I really want to feel like this way. Logically, I really want it to be better and just let it go and move on. And my body would not allow it. And I had to really learn a lot of patience, a lot of self-compassion, and yoking Christ, which helped me to be able to navigate all these hard things and all the hard things of people saying the wrong things at the wrong time. And
You know, makes me think about that intense desire for some kind of miracle. You know, that pleading of, this pain is so great, I can't manage it anymore. You know, and in the talk, in Elder Bednar's talk, he talks about, he kind of brings in these miracles that are happening, and the one thing he says is that uh, he tells the paralytic that the man who has the palsy, that his sins are forgiven. And what is the difference between your sins are forgiven and for him to say, arise and walk? To him, they are the same. And what he's trying to say is, the relief is coming in. You can arise and walk, knowing that the atonement is there for you. That's how I read that. You know, I tell my women all the time, there's only two certainties in life. Only two certainties. And if you try to find any other certainty, there's not going to be. The only two certainties is that you are going to sin, because you are in a fallen world. And the other certainty is that we have atonement. We have the atonement of Jesus Christ, and it will save us. Those are the only two certainties. Everything else is just up for grabs. Nothing else is predictable, even though the body's like, I gotta have predictability.
And you know, I loved how Elder Bednar, he shared that when the Lord was talking to that man with palsy, that he was instructing the man to exercise his faith, which took action and power, arise, right? And I was like, oh, wow. So like, you know, he was teaching them and preparing them before they would take the action and giving them that strength to actually, come on, arise.
I just have to tell you that's exactly, I hate, it's so hard. It's so hard. But yes, that is the invitation. That is literally the invitation. How do you exercise your faith in this very difficult moment? How do you do it, right? I have to share another story, personal. I'm sorry to interrupt you. My daughter and her husband are going through really crazy things right now. He lost his job. They were in an accident. They lost their car. They bought a new car and were scammed. And it was just this whole nightmare story that they've been going through. Things haven't been getting better. His nervous system is quite not working. He's not going to be able to go back to work for quite some time. They're trying to figure out how to get him well. She's having to go back to work. They just had a new baby. I mean, it just feels like the world on their shoulders. And the other day they were having, he was quite unwell. She's like, I need to go to work. And he says, you can't go to work. I can't watch the kids. I'm not going to be able to do this. And she didn't know she didn't have, I work, everybody else has commitments. Who's she going to call to, watch the kids? And, it was feeling totally overwhelming. She's like, I've got to get to work. We have to make money. And that night he gave her a blessing. And after the crazy day that she didn't get to work, he gave her a blessing, and she's still very dysregulated, feeling like I've got to get this, I have to support the family. And in the blessing, he just, tried to give her comfort that God sees her, and he's sending the angels down for her. And she just, still was having a hard time sleeping because of the stress is so bad. I mean, it's so real, right?
Oh yeah.
And, the baby wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning. She has to get up, after 3 hours of sleep, and she has to feed the baby. And then she couldn't go back to sleep. I mean, the struggle is so real. And while she's, deciding that she's going to get up because she's not going to sleep, she decides she's just going to start cleaning her very messy house. So she gets a garbage bag, and she's just picking up the garbage that the kids have been making a crazy mess of. And you know how it is when you have little kids. And she reaches under the sofa to grab some things, and she pulls out an envelope.
And on the front of the envelope, it has her nickname, because her name is Larissa, but we call her Lacey. I call her Lacey. Not a lot of people call her Lacey, but it had her nickname on it, which was interesting, right? Because wow, who knows my nickname, right? And it was addressed to her. Apparently the kids had gotten the mail and didn't give it to their mom. And 6:30 in the morning, she sees this envelope and it's got her nickname on it. She's like, that's weird. So she opens it up, and there's a check for $1,000 in there.
Wow, gives me the chills.
This is God's timing.
Yep.
This is God's timing.
So
This is
cool.
God's gift and God's timing.
Because
He needed to tell her right then.
That's amazing.
Rise. Come on, lady, let's go. We're going to do this together. I got you.
Yep.
That's
It's
so amazing.
those times when you really need him and you don't know how he's going to show up, but he's always there, and we think that he's not. And we're grateful for those little tender mercies. And I do like to hang on to this quote too that Elder Holland gave in Elder Bednar's talk, or Elder Bednar quoted Elder Holland, and it said, "Man's extremity is God's opportunity. And if we will be humble and faithful, if we will be believing and not curse God for our problems." So many people curse him. I think we can be angry, but not curse him, because he is there. He's actually the only one that's there when nobody else is, when the humans are not. And it says, he can turn the unfair and inhumane and debilitating prisons of our lives into temples, or at least into a circumstance that can bring comfort and revelation, divine companionship and peace. And he says, when suffering, we may in fact be nearer to God than we've ever been in our entire lives. And I would agree with that. I mean, that's where one of my greatest blessings was being able to really come closer to the Lord and really have to anchor to him, because it was like, whoa, nobody else could solve these things, and it takes time. It's not like we can just move through this quickly. And there were many times I felt great peace. And Elder Bednar talks, about that light that arise and that shine. And I really like to encourage people to look for the little glimmers and rays of light in their life, because light is truth. And if we can see examples of light, there's truth there. And we're usually seeing the hand of the Lord in our life in those moments where there's light. Like finding that envelope on that couch, that was a moment of light. And I'm here, I see you. And I love how you said that. We're going to do this together. He doesn't leave us alone.
Yeah, Rhonda.
So, Anella, you ask, how do we have faith in those moments that are really hard? Elder Bednar talks about, in the talk, says, some arise and shine forth miracles are big and fast. Some arise and shine forth miracles are small and slow. Something that Karen coined, slow motion miracles that we see in our life. So one way that I have learned to wait as slow motion miracles unfold in my life is found in a song by John Waller called While I'm Waiting, because we spend a lot of time waiting on the Lord's perfect timing in our life. And he says, I'm waiting on you, Lord, and I'm hopeful. I'm waiting on you, Lord, though it's painful, but patiently I will wait, and I will move ahead bold and confident, taking every step in obedience. While I'm waiting, I will serve you. While I'm waiting, I will worship. While I'm waiting, I will not faint. While I'm waiting, I will be running the race, even while I wait. So that's what I hold on to. Even though I'm waiting, I'm showing faith by hoping and by being bold and confident in my obedience to what I know to be true and right.
Rhonda,
And one of the things he says in this talk also is as you are waiting, you strip away that work to strip away that self-centeredness, work to strip away that selfishness, that self-doubt of the natural man. That's part of the waiting process. It's only through the merits and grace of the Holy Messiah that we can be blessed to arise. And part of that waiting process is the stripping away. And that can be so painful. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Rhonda, you said that's so beautiful that we are arising, that arising could be just what do we do while we wait for God's perfect timing, right? You did not say it like that, but the way you said it was so, yeah, there's stuff we're dealing with, so much patience that we have to have while we wait for the perfect timing of the Lord, and also work on our eyes to see, our ears to hear along the way, the little teeny things that are happening in that slow motion. Yeah.
Another
I
thing we
have to
do in
tell you, I
those,
work with a lot of people who have depression, and I will tell you, it's the biggest temptation of their life to just reject the whole notion of a God because they can't feel or hear or see Him. They have no sense of Him around them when they are experiencing that depression. It is so hard for them, and I will tell you, I just invite you all to not doubt. Just refuse to doubt in those spaces.
Doubt
Just
your
refuse to
doubts.
doubt. Yeah, just refuse to doubt. Just refuse it. Just say no, I won't. I refuse to doubt. I will only hold on to this belief even when I can't feel. Yeah, because eventually, I promise you, eventually this cloud will lift. I'm sorry, Rhonda, you were going to say something.
so just along those lines, though, what I have noticed when the spirit of depression, when we're experiencing that, some of us, there's different varying ways we experience that spirit of
Yeah.
depression. But one thing that I have done is I have a book of evidence that I keep, that I record when I have felt the spirit, when I've seen the Lord's hands in my life, when I am under that heavy weight of like, I can't get out from under that feeling of depression, because it comes and ebbs and flows. I turn to that book of evidence. And sometimes my prayers look like, Heavenly Father, I'm really struggling right now. I feel like I'm in the depths of despair. I feel like I don't know how to cope in this circumstance. But these are the things I know to be true. These are the truths and the promises I'm standing on because I have seen your hand in my life in these ways.
And I will tell you, when we get into those dark spaces, our brain can get locked in. And a book of evidence would be the best way for us to get unlocked because our brains can get super rigid on that.
I love that. I also wanted to share a quote from President Oaks. And I also want to bring in a reminder. During one conference talk, President Nelson reminded us that youth were anybody younger than him. And he was old, right? And so President Oaks says young men and women are peacemakers when they forego the temporary pleasure of self-gratifying activities and involve themselves in service projects and other acts of kindness. And really, a self-gratifying activity in the moment of the depths of despair may be, well, I'm just going to disconnect with God because you feel like that's going to help in the moment. And it's not. So just saying, I'm going to not doubt. I'm just going to trust and believe is foregoing a temporary pleasure or a temptation that the adversary is giving. And I really find that a powerful antidote, that if we can just involve ourselves. We talk a lot about passion projects, and that usually is not only to just benefit ourselves, but to benefit others. And we have to do that with the help of the Lord. And acts of kindness, little things, how can we show up? And sometimes the kindness is starting with being kind with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things he says at the end of his talk here says, we likewise can help our others to rise up because of our own personal experiences of that dark spaces that we're learning to rise up. And he says, as we consistently strive to rise up with ourselves, we're helping others. We may not even know it as we are seeking higher ground for ourselves. And he says we should first fuel the fire of testimony and spiritual growth in us before we modestly and effectively attempt to shepherd and bless family members, friends, and associates. Only in this way can we spiritually discern needs and assist others to arise. So doing your own work, rooting yourself in your work, just automatically will get you into that space that you can help others rise, doing your work, again, going back to, it's not your words. Sometimes your words can sound wah, 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 wah. It's your being, it's your action. It's you're in that space of holding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ladies, oh my goodness, an hour goes by so fast. I love hanging out with y'alls.
I know, me too. It's great.
Does anyone have any last things they want to say?
Just really quickly, along the lines of what you were just saying, Elder Bednar quoted President Harold B. Lee, and he said, "You cannot lift another soul until you're standing on higher ground than he is. You must be sure, if you would rescue the man, that you yourself are setting the example of what you would have him be. You cannot light a fire in another soul unless it's burning in your own soul. You teachers, the testimony that you bear, the spirit with which you teach and with which you lead is one of the most important assets you can have, as you help to strengthen those in need, so much wherein you have so much to give. Who of us, in whatever station we may have been in, have not need of strengthening?" So it's kind of like the lines of, when thou art strengthened, strengthen your brethren. And as we go through our pain, we can see other people's pain better because of the pain we're in.
Yeah. Yes, it is for a purpose.
It is for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always feel like it is in the moment, I promise you.
And Elder Bednar says that arising and shining is a miracle that's occurring for everyone. Like he says, arising and shining forth is a miracle that occurs repeatedly in the lives of disciples of Jesus Christ. But I like that he refers to arising and shining forth.
Rhonda, I think your microphone might be. Oh, mute for a minute. Anyway, finish.
No, that was it. That's a wonderful thing to notice. Whenever I arise and shine forth, it's a miracle happening in my life as a disciple of Jesus Christ.
Love it.
Yeah. Ladies, it's been so good to hang out with you. Thank you for this conversation. It is always very uplifting to me and reminds me of why it is what I do, and how important it is for me to show up in my very best self, even when I am in my crazy struggle.
Totally.
So thank you. And we will be back next week at the same time. So
Yay.
if you who want to join us, please do. I won't be here. Rhonda won't be here, but Karen and Markel will be here next week to go over to also do another react to our conference talk at the same time. So see you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.